All right. Peace, everyone. Greetings. Chief Yuya here. Please, if you can hear me, just throw a one up. Do the usual like we do it. Throw a one up in the chat so I know that I'm not talking to myself. All right. So please, but welcome everyone who's here. You know, and everyone who's coming in. Thank you, Sister Deidre. Appreciate it. Now we can get started. So of course, you all know that we've been doing our 2001 Space Odyssey breakdowns. We're on our third. We're on our third segment, right, of 2001, and I'm hoping each time we've kind of done these breakdowns, you all have taken a moment to rewatch. You know what I mean? Because even for those of you who saw it like a long time ago, you might realize that it's worth rewatching, or there's more you'll pick up. I was thinking about that as I was just kind of organizing some mental notes in my head for this segment, and definitely share it, man. I didn't share this segment. Usually I try to do it right before we start. So actually I'm gonna do it now while I'm talking. Let's see if I could do both. But yeah, man, y'all share it too. You know what I mean? Let people know we're about to get smart. We're about to do some smart people stuff. But yeah, as I was looking and I was thinking, like, all right, what do I want to tap? What do I want to touch on? I started really just looking at all of the different angles, um, all of the different kind of little hidey holes, if you will, that I could go down that this movie really takes you on. The music being one of them. It was such an occult ritual, and I would say the ritual continued because Stanley Kubrick also did Eyes Wide Shut. With Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and honestly, that movie was like a continuation of this movie. you know if you really, but not, obviously Eyes Wide Shut wasn't a scientific or a sci-fi movie, but if you understand the occult rituals, what was really being expressed from an occult perspective, you see that it was a continuation. Now of course you had 2010 A Space Odyssey, and then you had 3001 A Space Odyssey. So that was like another sequel, if you want 2001 Space Odyssey, 2010, the year we made contact. That was the subtitle. And then it was 3001 A Space Odyssey. I mean, obviously none of them were as good as 2001, because 2001 is the one that everyone still pretty much goes crazy over, with good reason. Yeah, and peace everyone to the chat, man. Peace, Sister Precious, Maria, YG Gutter, peace to you. Naya, Brother Darian, Raw Honey, peace to you. Akuya, Harut, Menelek, Arlene, welcome. And for everybody who's going to be coming in, maybe I'll do another glance over, try to pull up some of my notes before we get started. But yeah, you start to see the like I said, when you're looking at Hollywood movies, you never just want to look at it from the perspective of like the film, because it's never about the film itself. It's about who did the film. And then just like when I'm telling you, when you're studying scripture or anything, study who's speaking, who's being spoken to, and what's going on at that time. So when you're looking at the film of or the film works of certain filmmakers, a lot of times what you're looking at is that person's initiation spirit experience that they're chronologizing for you through their art. So like if I'm going through a certain occult ritual initiation, and just when I say occult, please don't like take your mind to this evil place. Occult just means hidden, right? And some things are not everyone's business. So if I'm going through a certain initiation and I have access to produce a certain level of art, and that initiation or that experience produces a certain level of esoteric awareness, obviously I'm going to put it into my art, you know. And I would say like 2001 was probably really the first film that I can really recall where we had deep esoterics involved. You know what I mean? I think that's why it's such a classic, because in this short time, you know, in 2 hours or less, they were able to really speak to the purpose, meaning, and the journey of man. You know what I mean? And not just speak to it from the perspective of like the scientific or the anthropological aspect, but speak about it from also the alchemical aspect, because the whole movie was laced in alchemy, you know. So that's what I say, like it has a certain classic appeal because of all of the different areas that it was able to touch on. Peace, brother Ra. You know, so we looked at the first, you know, this movie is broken down into three parts really. The first part is the dawn of man, you know, and then the second part that we're dealing with now is the mission to Jupiter, or the Jupiter mission, actually is the name of this part. And you know, I said last time when we met, I went over some of just again the symbolism that you would find in this second part. And I said when we meet up again, we'll kind of do it a little bit more, you know, in chronological order as far as what was happening. And again, like I said, when I was like thinking about, you know, because I like put together a couple, and I said, yeah, let me jot down some notes because I'm going to end up going into the stratosphere. But like when I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you, I was like, man, I could go this way, I could go that way, I could. The movie just has so much, you know what I mean? So let's just start with some of the chronology of it all. And again, peace and welcome. Make sure you share the yeah, I didn't share it. I said I was going to share, right? Did I share it? I did share it. Yeah, 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 I did. I did a little share. I did a small share. Didn't do a big share. Um, but yeah, pull up my notes. So yeah, man. So like so many directions we can go. But let's just start, right? So when we, like I said, we left the eight men. He threw the bone up in the air, and then the bone flips, and then it turns into the spacecraft that we see. Now, of course, you know this. I want to add. This is the part that I'm going to add in this particular breakdown this time. Um, there's a strong Nietzschean kind of theme that goes throughout this particular movie. I mean, you can, you know, when you study certain things and then you watch stuff, it's almost like when you could tell when certain people steal information from certain people, you can also tell who studies what. You know, just by watching certain things, like oh yeah, that one has this written all over it, that one has that written all over it. You know what I mean? So it's like listening to Van Hunt and you're gonna hear Curtis Mayfield, you know, or you listen to D'Angelo Untitled and you're gonna hear Al Green. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things, if you stay immersed in a certain kind of world or sound or school or study, you know immediately like, oh, that's just this. You know what I mean? So this film is laced with Nietzscheism in it. It's just like it's all in it. It's similar to like when you read Shakespeare. Shakespeare is laced with alchemy, you know. So if you're reading Shakespeare, you clearly, like if you're someone who studies alchemy, you immediately know, like, okay, all of these plays are about alchemy, you know. And one of the phrases that they used to use was that, you know, you have, and just like with 2001 Space Odyssey, you have a certain understanding that's for what we call the groundlings, you know. And the groundlings are, it's similar to like the bone that was thrown in the air, right? So the eight man at the end of the first act, he throws a bone in the air and it becomes a spaceship. But they're on the spaceship, they're eating and they're going to the bathroom, they're doing all these bodily functions to pretty much show that we're still just animals. You know, we're still just apes in space. You know what I mean? So the concept there is again, it's a Nietzschean concept where it's you know, the worm, no matter how high the worm may ascend, whether it's on the ground or it's on a mountain or wherever, it's still a worm. You know, it's still something that is devoted to the base level of the earth. Or again, when you read Shakespeare, you know that there's aspects of it that are meant for the groundlings, and then there's aspects that are meant for the alchemists, right? So the same thing with this film, you know, like again, like I said, you read Shakespeare's like, okay, this is all alchemy. Like every play, you know, and I started reading Shakespeare when I was super young, right? Because I got into it. But I didn't pick up the alchemical aspects of it. I just thought these are really interesting stories. And I just liked his pen game. I was like, yo, the way he flips his slang like is crazy, you know. So I got into it just off of the wordsmithing. And then as I began to study other things, oh, wait a minute. Something else happening here. And then look at the person. Well, let me figure out who this dude is. Oh, he was an alchemist. That makes sense. So it's the same thing with this film. You know, um, there are levels. You could look at it as it's a really cool sci-fi film. It's got a lot of cool cinematography, or you can see the alchemical aspects. And like I said, I'm sitting here trying to like, should I talk about the alchemy? Should I talk about the esoterics of it? Then there's a whole political thing, you know, with the whole Russian thing. Like, but whatever, you get what you get. So when we start off, you know, in the second act, we're looking at it from the just the time lapse or the timeline. They're on the interior of a plane, or what looks like a plane. It's actually a ship. It's a shuttle that's that's taking them eventually to the moon, but they have a layover at space station number 5, right? Now on the shuttle, um there's a woman walking and she has these white shoes. I mentioned that last time, which is supposed to allow, they like stick to the floor because there's no gravity, so it allows her to, and you see stuff is floating in the air and she's kind of walking like this. I'm laughing because it was like, if you really understand what Kubrick was doing, it's funny. Um, you know, keep in mind that again, like I said, the first space mission or the first moon mission was a year later, 1969. This was 68. And at that time, the head of NASA and Kubrick, they were like thick as thieves. You know, they were having all of these different meetings, and um, you know, they even allowed Kubrick to use the Carl Zeiss lens. Carl Zeiss, Zeiss. It's the lens. I think I shared this once, that they use on Sony cameras. That's why, and some of the Galaxies, that's why your pictures are so good on your Galaxies, your earlier iPhones, because they use the Carl Zeiss lens. And they're like really expensive lenses. You know, I had a camera that got stolen that had a Carl Zeiss lens in it. You know, it makes all the difference in the world. But NASA had actually, they were trading technology, Kubrick and NASA. I'm gonna tell you something interesting about this film, like a little fun fact. When we talk about like the technology and stuff that was used, there was a famous conversation with the head of the studio at that time, the movie studio, and he was overheard saying, like, he was asked about the budget of the film, and he was like, I don't know how much this film was costing. You know, and if you just think about it, it's hilarious because you're the head of this big movie company and you don't even know how much this movie is costing. So there's a lot of different ways you could look at that. There's a lot of different things you can draw from that. But essentially, Kubrick had an unlimited budget to do this film, you know, to the point the head of the studio was like, I don't even know how much this costing. Like, I don't know what the budget is. You know what I mean? So you could, again, you can draw certain conclusions, like either the film was just that big that, you know, and Kubrick was just given like carte blanche, or maybe NASA paid for the film. Maybe it wasn't the film studio who actually paid for it, right? A lot of different things you could come up with. Also, what's important to understand about the greatness of this movie, you know, even Orson Welles, like after this movie came out, and Orson Welles was like an amazing director. But after this came out, he said that Kubrick was like basically the greatest director of our time, Stanley Kubrick, right? That's a big statement, you know, from someone as nice with his skill as Orson Welles, right? But what happened was, after this movie, Kubrick was then given a lifetime contract a lifetime contract where he could produce and put out any kind of movie that he wanted, no matter the budget, on any subject or any concept. And think about it, for the rest of his life, not like a 3-year contract thing. For the rest of your life, whatever you want to do, you can do. Right? That was the effect of this film, you know. And I've known like I've only known like in my life maybe one or two other, not for movies, but like I've seen like producers and artists, music artists who have gotten contracts like that. You know, Stevie Wonder, for instance, he signs his musicians to lifelong contracts if they want it. You know, where you'll always have a gig, but he gives them a salary for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? Like, but that's nothing compared, like, you know what I mean? Like what? Okay, my next movie is going to be $300 million. You know what I mean? That's nothing compared, to the same. So, and no one wanted to pay for the rings of Saturn, right? Well, yeah. One theory, we spoke about the rings of Saturn on the last one, why they went to Jupiter instead of Saturn. And I told you because the sci-fi department couldn't reproduce Saturn. One theory. Or because in the book they maintained it as Saturn. Or there's an initiatory path. If you look at the cult of Saturnalia, there's an initiatory path that you take to get to Saturn. You don't go directly to Saturn. You have to go through other heavenly bodies first. And as you saw, like the whole movie was about heavenly bodies from the very beginning. You see the alignment of the sun, moon, and the monolith. And the monolith was if you look at the angles, like the photographic angles of the monolith, when it's in the sun, it always looks like a pyramid without a capstone. That's the science what it was supposed to represent there, right? But we'll get into that. Anyway, let's get back to our chronology. And peace, yeah, Naya and Aquia and Isaiah, brother Zach, you know what I mean? Sister Shamanique. So the spacecraft, like I said, they start up there in an interior, and Dr. Haywood Floyd is on the craft, and there's a movie playing while he's sleeping. Right, he's sleeping on the shuttle that's taking him. He has a layover at Space Station 5 before he gets to the moon. It's very important that you remember he was sleeping. Sleeping is very important in this film. Like Nas said, sleep is the cousin of death. I never sleep because sleep is the cousin of death. You know what I mean? So the sleeping part is very important, right? And remember, like with that, he's a doctor. Dr. Floyd is the director of the National Association of Aeronautics, you know. And like I said, we see the woman walking, she's walking in zero gravity, the movie's playing, and he's asleep. So then we get to, right, we see the pen floating in the air. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Overpriced tender. They on it. But anyway, so you know, so Space Station 5, they get to Space Station 5, right? I'm just going to the chronology. And Floyd asks for Mr. Miller, right? He was kind of like the head of security there. He shakes Mr. Miller's hand. He comes up, and he has to go to, they talk for a minute, but then Floyd has to go make a phone call. He calls his daughter. He uses a voice identification to make his phone call. Now, again, I'm running this down, and you might be like, yeah. But you got to remember, it's 1968. These things don't exist. So I want you to understand, like, the advanced nature of the technology that you're seeing here is one of the reasons why Kubrick was hanging out at NASA. I always say NASA. Kubrick was hanging out at NASA. He was soaking up technology, but in my estimation, he was also trading technology as well. Like, here, I'm going to show you how to I'm going to show you how to shoot a movie for your flick that's coming out next year called The Moon Landing, and you're going to show me some of this alien technology. Yeah, you gotta have eyes to see. So he uses voice identification, and he makes a phone call to his home. It's his daughter's birthday. Now, why is this scene significant? Because you're seeing excitement. One of the things that you're going to notice in this flick, there's a couple of things. Like, and I'm not really spoiling it at this point because you would have seen it already. Um, you The first 20 minutes is silent. There's no diet. Well, it's not silent, but there's no dialogue like the first 20, 25 minutes of the film. The last 20, 25 minutes of the film, there's no dialogue. So these little things that are happening in between are important. One of the things that you'll notice throughout the film is not a lot of emotion shown. That's purposeful. Like when you look at prehistoric man, then you see like when the monolith comes and they're like, oh, and they're jumping around, and you know what I mean? And even the emotion that was used to scare the one group away from the water hole, they used all emotion. But then as man develops and grows, you see less emotion. You see less joking and laughing and things like that. So when he's talking to his daughter, and the daughter is like, "Daddy, are you coming to my birthday?" But like she's all excited. And even when they close the camera down, like when they end the phone call, she's smiling. If you think about it, it's like the only smile. The smile from the child is like the only smile you see in the entire movie. So he slips his card into the machine. He calls his daughter, happy birthday, darling, and whatever, whatever. And then he goes to a gathering of the National Council, right? So he goes into this room with all the dignitaries. And I spoke about that last time. Like they were surrounded by screens. And are such a critical thing. Like I told you, pay attention, because everything about this movie is about a movie. Like everything about this movie is about a movie, right? So the gathering, and Floyd and Halverson was the other gentleman who was talking, who was introducing him, right? Um but actually, let me before I get to that, there's something that happened. So before, when he was at his layover on Space Station 5, he ran into a woman, Elena, that he knew, right? And she introduced him to some friends she had there, and they were Russian scientists. This is a key piece, right? Why is it key? Because at this time the US had tension with Russia, right? So again, when you're studying esoterics, you're studying anything, I don't care if it's a religion, it's a mythology, you got to know what's going on at the time, because that gives you context. Everything, we need context for everything we do nowadays. And unfortunately, especially because so much of what we do is digital. Like how many times have you seen like a video clip on social media of some sort of brutality, right? And you get just like a little clip, like a little 3 second, 4 second clip. But if you look at more of it, you'll realize, oh, wait a minute, what I thought happened didn't actually happen. That person needed to get taken down, or this happened, or that. So everything is required. We need context. And unfortunately, oftentimes we're missing context. And nowadays, we don't even look for it. We don't even look for it anymore, because we want that emotional fix. Something happens and we want to feel this way. So I don't need to know the rest. So again, he speaks to these Russian scientists, and they're talking about they're going to Clavius. He's going to Clavius. Now, just so you know, Clavius, which is a real name of a place, it's on the moon. It's the largest crater that's on the moon, and it was named after the German astronomer, and he was also a priest. His name was Christopher Claus. And Christopher Claus, when they Latinized it, they turned it into Clavius, right? But so this was actually a real person. He was like, at his time, he was like the foremost astronomer. Galileo like gave him ridiculous amount of credit, and he was centered on the geocentric model of the universe. The geocentric meaning, like now we're supposedly, like we say everything is heliocentric, where everything revolves around the sun. But at that time, with the geocentric model, the thought was that everything revolved around the planet, around the Earth, we'll say, right? The Earth was the center of everything. And he was a huge proponent of that. And there was a lot, whether he was right or wrong, because at the end of the day, you don't really know. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like, so you might say, oh, but now we know better. Everything revolves around the sun. Who freaking knows? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we could look at the mythology and say, well, the sun is the center because of yada yada yada. But I can make the same argument for the moon. You know what I'm saying? So I can make the same argument for some unseen star that we have yet to discover, and how we're all revolving around the hidden and the unseen, which makes more sense. Why would we revolve around something that we can actually see when everything comes from an unseen nucleus, right? I can make that up. So I don't freaking know. But either way, that's where the Clavius thing came from. You know what I mean? So he's on his way to Clavius, which is this huge crater that's in the moon. And the Russian scientist is like, yo, did you hear about the strange appearances, things that strange happenings there, and we have a team there that we haven't been able to speak to in 10 days. And he's just playing dumb. I don't know what you talking about, right? So we get to see, like, this is the beginning of how fake news is generated. Like, there's secrets inside of secrets. And this is similar to Moonwatcher. This was the ape man. Remember when I said that in that moment where he learned how to use the bone, he became the Illuminati. Because even though he's this prehistoric man, and we look at Illuminati like they're somewhere with hoods on doing rituals and stuff like that, I've often said to you that the Illuminati is us. You're the one that's going to go to work tomorrow or wherever you go and act like you like everybody else, and you didn't listen to this broadcast the night before teaching you about all this esoterics and occultism and deep thinking. You're going to pretend like you don't even know any of that. You're going to just pretend like you're like everybody else. That's Illuminati behavior. You know what I'm saying? So in that moment, like I said, Moonwatcher, he figured out I could use his bone as a weapon, as a tool. Then he hit it. Illuminati, secret order, right? So in that moment, Dr. Haywood, he's representing, or Floyd, his name is Haywood R. Floyd. He's representing that Illuminati energy. He's like, he knows he came there to collect information and bring it back to the National Council. He knows that they found an artifact there, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? So, like I said, he acts like he knows nothing about it. He doesn't know anything about strange occurrences or anything. So after that, like I said, he has a call, whatever, because he cuts the conversation. So he's like, all right, make a call. One of the things that you'll see that's really important, actually, we'll come back. It's something but I want to dig into it a little deeper. It's a sidebar, but it's a meaty sidebar. So he goes to he continues his trip to the moon. You know what I mean? He's traveling to the moon, right? And he goes to the excavation site at the moon, and notice that when they're on the ship on the way to the moon, they're eating sandwiches, right? They're digging in this like cardboard by what you got, PB&J with the crust cut off. They're looking for different sandwiches and they eating and whatever. This is actually probably the most, not the most, but the second to the most appealing food that you see. Because one of the things that you notice throughout the movie from beginning to end, the food looks disgusting. Like in every single scene. You know what I mean? Even at the end when Dave is at the table and he's eating, he's got the wine glass. Even the food there looks like, yeah, you know what I mean? It looks like Tuesday at an elementary school cafeteria. You know what I mean? Tuesday, you don't get anything good. It's not like Friday pizza or something, or tacos. It looks like a Tuesday at the, somebody's Salisbury steak. You know what I'm saying? And before that, when we're looking at the 8 men, they're just eating like a raw leopard. So we never actually see at any point where there's anything enticing, but they're constantly still consuming. Every time you see them, they're eating. When they're on the moon shuttle headed to the moon, headed to Space Station 5, they're eating. Even before he went and got the water hole back, he's eating raw meat. There's always this eating. And then when they're on the shuttle headed to the moon, now they're eating sandwiches again. They're constantly eating, which again is that depiction of the animal nature of humanity. Like you really are not you really are not dissimilar from that ape man. You're the same person, because just like you were sitting at the table and this Russian was like, yo, we ain't spoke to our team in 10 days is an issue. You're still not telling him the truth. Why? Because you're still fighting over the water hole. You're like, well, you ain't going to get to the monolith before America gets to the monolith. There's still this battle for resources that you did not generate, right? So it's still that concept. So like I said, so they go off on the moon mission. On the shuttle to the moon. They're eating their sandwiches, and he's drinking coffee. And the the monolith that's at the moon, it's at the Tycho area. Tycho is a real ray. It's like a strip next to Clavius. These are real places on the moon. Now, the reason why I'm stressing and saying these are actually real places, because I want to reiterate once again, for those who weren't here last session, the moon landing was in 1969. This movie came out in 1968. So to have these places mapped accurately like this for a movie, I hope it makes you think, right? But either way, they go to see that other monolith that they call TMA1. And the reason they called it TMA1, that stood for Tycho Magnetic Anomaly 1. So that also shows you that at this time they had the ability to read electromagnetic waves, right? So they go to see TMA1, and as they stand in front of it, they're walking down. Again, you see the symmetry, the lights on each side of the monolith, and they're walking down. And when they stand in front of it to take a picture, it lets off a high pitched sound, as soon as the sun hits it, again, which is an awakening. It's an awakening. And when the sun hits it and it lets off that high pitched sound, it sends a signal straight out to really Saturn, but for the movie Jupiter, right? Now, what is the significance here? Well, remember when they were on the shuttle on the way to the moon, one of the things that like you got everything. There's two things that happened on that shuttle that was significant. One, this guy, Floyd, Dr. Floyd just finished saying, like, are they back again? We have more cheap sex than tender. Okay. So this guy Floyd just finished saying, like, I don't know anything about this. I got nothing for you, right? um Even though he was in the council and they were talking and he was explaining things, and basically what he was doing, he was preparing the cover story, because that's what they were talking about in the council. This is what we're telling him that it is, but it's this. So this is a story that we all gonna stick to. So they were generating what their fake news was gonna be about. And notice, at no point did they call the monolith alien. There was no mention of anything like aliens did this, nothing like, there was no. So we are not sure, according to the film, is this an advanced race of humans? Are these ancient humans that built this monolith? Whatever, but there's nothing they at no point did they say, oh, aliens planted this monolith. Now, so the two things, like I said, that was significant on the shuttle, he's talking after all this secrecy, and they're eating their sandwiches and everything, and the pilots are piloting the shuttle. I don't think they had steering wheels. I'm doing this, but not like they was whipping the shuttle. You know what I mean? But however they was, riding the shuttle, the pilots are right there with the shuttle, and he's talking loud, basically when they're right in earshot. But this was supposed to be some big secret. You see, so you start to see, like in the film, like I was saying before, what's presented to the audience. There's different levels of what's presented, because there's a narrative that's presented, but if you really look closely, you see the film is undermining its own precepts while the film is going. even down like to the light angles. If you look at when they were on the moon, when they were getting ready to walk down into the crater, the shadows are off. You have a certain shadow that's on the planet Earth. And then if you look at the two astronauts or the two moonwalkers, what astronauts we call them, who were getting ready to walk down, there was a light overhead, right over their head, and a shadow to the right of their feet. But if you just so you understand, based on where the moon, so let's say the Earth was here, based on where the light of the Earth was, there had to have been a sun like here, right? But the astronauts were here, standing here, and it was a light overhead right here, right? So again, they spent a lot of money on this movie. Somebody would say, "Yo, the light is off. No, we got to change the angle of the lighting." So there was like there's a couple ways you could look at it. I'm not going to cap like how many ways to look at it, but it could have been the star child was watching them the entire time, and that was the second source of light. Because throughout the movie, we always saw extra light and didn't know where it was coming from, or they purposely were showing you this is fake. Being on the moon is fake because again, I'm going to reiterate: moon landing 1969, movie comes out 1968. So what did you even know what the moon was going to look like or whatever? You hadn't been there yet. You know, you what did you even know what the Earth looked like from the moon? You know, so how could you really depict that? So there's so much there that we can pull from, right? So um yeah, they go to the anomaly, makes the noise, boom, boom, boom. Like I said, oh, the two things, I'm sorry. So the one thing, the pilot was in earshot. That was the first thing. So it's like, is this really a secret? Or are you undermining the precept of telling us that it was a secret? Number one. Number two, they emphasized the point that the monolith was um purposely what's the word I'm looking for? Buried. Excuse me. Couldn't come up with the word buried. It was purpose. So they was like, it wasn't erosion or dust that covered it. They could tell that it was actually buried in the moon. Very significant for a couple of reasons. One, at this time, there were many astronomers who postured that the moon surface was just dust. Like you couldn't walk on the moon, right? So the concept or the idea of being able to go there and bury something wouldn't really make sense. Not it's not to say that all people believe that you could not land something on the moon. Um, then it's the whole thing. Remember when they hit the moon with that rocket and the moon, they said it rang out for like this really elongated time, you know, and they were still trying to figure out why that happened. Now, just to give you an understanding, if you took a hammer and you hit a rock, it's not going to make a sound like a bell unless it's made of metal. So when they hit the moon with this is in the movie, this is real life. So when they shot that rocket to the moon and it hit the surface and it rang out like a bell, there was some theories that okay, the moon is actually made of iron or it's a metal construct, if you will, right? Um, we still haven't gotten any answers on that one. No one has come back and explained to us why the moon made that sound when it was hit. We still don't know. I mean, some people say that the moon is actually a lunar base, and it's not actually a piece of the Earth that broke off. It's actually a ship, like the Death Star in Star Wars. You know, A New Hope. Who knows, right? Somebody knows. So there's that aspect, but they were making it clear that this thing was buried. It's so somebody purposely put it there, maybe to be found, maybe not to be found. Now, the theory again, I would postulate was that it would be found when humanity was ready to discover it. Now, when would humanity be ready to discover it? When you actually were able to now build ships and make it to the moon, you're going to find this thing. And that will tell us that you're ready for your next step. Because you remember when they uncovered it and the sun hit it, it then sent a signal to the next monolith, which was much bigger than the previous two, right? So it was like each stage you find something, it takes you to another thing. Because when Moonwatcher came across the first monolith in prehistoric times, it was just sitting on the surface of the earth, easy to find, right? Right outside of their cave. The next one is like, now you have to go up to the heavens to find this one. So there's all this evolution that leads to a next, to a next, to a next, to a next. I'm going to get into what that could mean. That was my side bar from earlier, but I want to get into a little bit more. So again, now we're on the ship. Actually, I'll shoot to the chat. I don't usually do that, but see if there's any. Right, tension with Russia over who would land on the moon first. Right, there was a moon race at that time. Now if you read the book, this is Sovereign Eat said this. If you read the book 2001: A Space Odyssey, there was paranoia about the Russians finding the monolith first. I'll explain a little bit of that later. So that was actually that it was actually present. Peace, Arslan. Ross said, I found it interesting how the little girl asked for a Bush baby right on the FaceTime call. So you see there's still that animalistic nature, you know. I'll get into why that is. That's actually part of the sidebar too. But there's still a desire for something organic. There's still a desire for something real. Because everything in this space now, remember when the monolith first appeared, they were so frightened of it because of its geometry, straight lines, and this is nothing that nature is extravagant. In nature is imbued with sacred geometry. If you look at a sesame seed, you look at a seed, you look at a plant, what you can see, it mirrors the same formation of the planets. If you can look at things at their microcosmic level, or you can look at the formation, or the actual, when I say the formation, I'm saying the actual arrangement of how the universe is, right? As we can see it through our telescopes, you can find that same exact mathematical equation. They talk about the pi, right? Where you see the always the image of the man, and it shows the certain dimensions and the ratios that exist within the human body. And then they find that those same exact ratios exist in the universe. So this tells us that we as man are an image of the universe. We are the image of the universe. And that's the sacred geometry, because what that tells us is that the universe has intelligent form. Like when people say, oh man, it's just haphazard, this comes again. That, yeah, I could believe that everything didn't follow the same form. That doesn't make sense. So that means there's an actual formula that some sort of intelligence is following to create a walnut, and then to create a star, to create a sunflower, to create a planet, to create the formation of a body of planets. Everything actually has the same mathematical formation within a fractal space, where it's all, so there's some kind of intelligence that's behind all of this, just off of the fact that it's all uniform. Everything's matching up, right? So that was an important thing, right? So when the monolith appeared, it was like, what the heck? Because again, nature is extravagant. There's nothing in nature that looks simple. If you think, but from the smallest thing, nothing looks simple. You know what I mean? I mean, think about, I mean, I don't mean to be vulgar, but we talk about what anal retentiveness is. Anal retentiveness comes from, so they say, when young babies are not allowed to play or explore or study their own feces, they become anal retentive, right? This is a theory. It's a theory. Doesn't mean it's the truth. But there is something to that. Who does not look at their excrement? From something as, and if you don't, it's only because you don't trust yourself. You know what I'm saying? If you go to the bathroom and you don't even look behind, you don't even trust what comes out of you. So why should I trust whatever you say when you inboxing me trying to get me to buy Bitcoin? No, I'm playing. but, but yeah, I'm just saying, Even down to the simplest things of like, even that doesn't look simple. There's nothing that happens in nature that looks simple. So when the monolith came, it was like, whoa, it's so simple that it was unworldly and spooky, you know. So the little girl saying, I want a bush baby is a call back to the organics of a creator, of a higher, more spiritual creator, which we'll get into in a minute. Um, right. Master Menelik says they were FaceTiming. That's exactly what they were doing. They were FaceTiming. Um, he just wanted to know how it was going to affect the rest of. I'm not sure what that was. Um, there was no food on her plate. Right. Because there was no real food on the plate because, like I said on the last session, it represent lies. Just like when we sit there and we eat something, we know you go and you get imitation crab meat salad. What did you just eat? It's a lie. You know it's a lie though. So you're purposely eating a lie, meaning that you are stomaching your own lies. You know, so that's what that why you never saw real food, because that's what the whole movie was about, getting you to accept a lie. If I can get you to accept a lie, I can keep you in the bondage of humanity. That's the key. We'll explore that in a second. Um, yeah, I think I got most of it. Um, I think. Right, Sister Sham, the golden ratio. There should have been no sound in space, either the apparent vacuum. Right. There's no sound in space, there's no explosions in space, it's complete darkness. I mean, there's so much from a scientific perspective that I told you in the beginning was off about this movie, but that's the secret. It's off on purpose to show you that don't believe this. Don't believe this. Kubrick did an amazing thing. We'll get into it. And he dropped hints to let us see we just playing with your mind this whole time. He dropped us little hints. So yeah, we now we find ourselves on the Discovery One. We see Dr. Frank Poole. He's running, you know, because they're like I said, it's a centrifuge. So the ship is spinning, and that spin is what's, you know, artificially creating this gravity, you know. So you find him running, and then we have David Bowman on the ship. He's the other person. So it's Frank Poole and David Bowman. David Bowman is the mission commander. And these two are awake while there's three other scientists that are on the ship who are in cryo sleep, if you will. And they know about the true mission of what they're doing of the Discovery One. And uh, David and Frank don't know what they're doing. They don't know why they're going to Jupiter. They don't know about the monolith or anything like that. That's important. That's important. So the voyage from where they're at to Jupiter is 500 million miles. Okay. And of course it's navigated and maintained by this supercomputer called the HAL 9000, HAL, HAL, the heuristic algorithmic. I don't remember what the L stands for. You're doing a great movie breakdown. You don't even know the name of the damn characters, but it's HAL. I know it's heuristic algorithmic something. Y'all will probably look it up. Somebody can look it up while we talk and put it in the chat. But so one of the things that you noticed when we were speaking about the piece with the little girl, right? The bush baby, daddy, are you coming to my birthday and all that, right? Um, we focus in for a moment on Frank, and Frank in that moment is he's laying out, he's just kind of relaxing, kind of tanning or whatever, just laying around doing nothing. And Hal says there's a transmission from your parents, and his parents are telling him, like, you know, greetings from all his family back home and whatever. And it's his birthday. And Hal is also like, happy birthday, Dr. Poole. And the family's saying happy birthday. And Frank could care less. He's like, whatever. You know, he's tanning. He's like, yeah, psh, to Hal and his parents, right? Significant, because what we're seeing there is the decline of humanity through the decline of human emotions. You know, throughout pretty much from the moment we're on a discovery forward, we see no more human emotion. We see no laughing, we see no anger, we see no fear, We see no sadness. We see no happiness. Nothing. It's a total collapse of human emotion. And we saw it from early primitive man who was relying on instincts and intuition in order to navigate his environment to now to this ascended man, because these men now, when I say men, I mean male and female, they are higher beings now because they're now traveling the stars, going billions of light years away, this and that, or billions of miles away. These are considered higher ascended beings, but they have lost much of their humanity because of their reliance and cradling inside of technology. Okay. So the messages of warm that come from the earth, right? So what's coming from the ground, Frank's parents, they're like, hey, hi, son. Da, da, da. It still feels warm and very human, but what's coming from the heavens back down is very cold and uncaring. See, it's very important that you understand something about this flick, what Kubrick was doing. Like I said, it was named a space odyssey for a reason, because this movie was the 1968 version of the Odyssey. That's what he was doing. Remember you had two epic poems that were really, we talk about the image and the reflection. This is an important part where I was telling you about the symmetry throughout the film. Okay. Heuristically programmed algorithmic computers. I guess the L is, yeah, I was thinking. Thank you, Master Menelek. So the Iliad and the Odyssey were reflections of each other. Now, I want you to understand something important. Please, if this is a really important thing that you get this, so you'll understand the next piece when we get to the third part of the film. We are made in the image of the creator, right? That's important. We use terms like this, especially when we're dealing with 120. The moon is the reflection of the sun. Yeah, true. So that means my woman is a reflection of me. Yes, metaphorically. Energetically, you don't want that. You don't want your woman to be a reflection of you. And I'm gonna explain to you why. And it's the same thing when you look at the books, the Iliad, the Odyssey. I want you to understand what Kubrick was doing with this film and why he named it a space odyssey. He could have named it a space voyage, a space safari, a space adventure. You know what I'm saying? He named it a space odyssey because you got to understand the science of it. When you read those, but I mean, if you haven't gotten an opportunity, read the Iliad, read the Odyssey. I know for a lot of people in like the culture community, when you start talking about old Greek and what I mean, poems and epic novels, you turn your nose up, but don't do that. That's just ignorant. You know what I mean? You learn where you can learn, and you don't even have to make everything yours in order to learn. Oh, they just stole that from us. Nah, there's other smart people on the planet. You know what I'm saying? You can learn different things from other people, but it's all about your world perspective and how you can take that and absorb it into what you're doing. This is why you sitting back complaining that everybody stole everything from. They ain't really steal it. They saw you doing it better than what they were doing and were like, I'm going to use that. That's intelligent. That's just called being intelligent. You know what I mean? Like if you do it better, if your fried rice and General Toy Stoy's chicken is better than my honey barbecue rings, I'm gonna learn how to make General Toy Stoy's chicken. What? You know what I mean? What's it? If your chicken fajitas is better than my chicken patties, in my empanadas, I'm gonna eat your chicken fajitas. So it's really just a issue of just learning from different cultures and learning how to assimilate that into what it is that you're doing, right? So the Iliad and the Odyssey were reflections. They were reflective poems of each other. That's important for you to understand because when you read the Iliad is all about interaction with the gods, right? So as he's traveling through this journey, Athena is telling him to do this, and this god is telling him to do that, and pick up the sword here and go grab this and grab that. So he's being really guided and sent and purposed. Purpose is an important word. Purpose and sleep go together in this movie. You understand? He's guided by the gods. Whereas when you get to the Odyssey with Odysseus, Odysseus figures out something. Yo, the gods play games. I can't trust what they're talking about. The gods like to play games with people. So you know what? I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm gonna go on my own journey. And what Odysseus figures out is, yo, this worked out better doing it the way I wanted to do it than doing it the way they told me to do it. So in that, he killed the gods. And we're gonna get into what that means. We're going to just that's a part of the side thing. I told you side thing is meaty, right? So this movie, it wasn't 2001 A Space Iliad, because it's not about coming under the auspices of the gods, even though there still is a presence of that. But you notice throughout the movie, there's no reference to God. Nobody has a line where they're like, oh my God, or because they put that stuff in movies on purpose. When you hear a character like Jesus Christ, that's they do that for a reason. You know what I mean? You don't hear any of that. You hear one reference in this entire movie when it should have been so many more, because the whole concept of this of an possible alien civilization burying these monoliths should have caused people to question their belief in a god. There's one scene. I wrote the note down because I wanted to quote it properly. There's one scene. Did I write it down? I thought I did. Now watch after I'm done. I'll find it. So yeah, man. But there's one scene, that the scene where Floyd, Dr. Floyd, he goes to check in. He's registering, at that computer point. And there's even though it looks like a person and everything, there is there's a person, or there's a woman who, I guess I didn't make this note. I could have sworn I wrote this down. But there's a woman who's like, he's got to check in, very similar to like how you would check in at a airport or whatever like that. And she tells him to say his name. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for it while I'm talking, because I want to quote this the way I wrote it. That's crazy. But anyway, so what she says, okay, it's just a little part, but I just thought it was cool. She says, please state your destination. Yeah, I'm gonna see. I'm gonna look it up real quick. See if I can find it. The transcript, because I just typed it from what I remember from the movie. I ain't gonna find it. But anyway, I had it written down. I lost it. But she said, please state your destination, your Christian name, and something else. It's like she's, but they snuck it in there really quick. She said your Christian name. That's the only reference in the whole movie that you have of some type of religious thought or a god. Now, again, remember, this is 2001. That's being depicted in 1968. So by 2001, there's an erasure of God. Now, again, that's my side note that I'm gonna get into. So we're gonna get back to that. So anyway, uh, let me go ahead. Then I'll go back to the chat later. Right. So they're on a discovery mission. Like you said, there's an absence of emotion. And at a certain point, you see Hal initiates a conversation with David. Now, what was interesting before this, there was a scene with Hal and Frank. What you start to figure out, like I said, throughout this film, is that Hal is testing everybody. And this is similar to the Odyssey, because the there's like a changing of hands. Like I said, the Odyssey, you have this concept where he figures out like, yo, I don't need these gods. These gods are messing my. There we go. That's what I wanted. Thank you, Menelek. When you see the red light, that was why I wanted to say it right. Red light going, would you please state in the following order your destination, your nationality, and your full name, surname, first Christian name, and initial. That was, thank you, Master Mike. That's the only um reference that we like, the only spiritual religious reference we got in the whole film when he said Christian name. So there was an acknowledgement that even the way it was said, like that was something of old. Because even the order of the way the name was said, your full name, surname first, Christian name, and initial. You see. So anyway, so like I said, this is a reflective story of the Iliad. And why I say, like, yeah, we are the image of the universe. We are the image of the Most High. We're not the reflection of the Most High. Because you have to think about what a reflection is. Just like the Iliad and the Odyssey, they reflect each other. So whereas one was completely in servitude to the gods, the other one was self-actualizing and was removing the obligation towards these lower deities and looking to ascend to become a greater man, right? So if I say my woman is my reflection, the first thing I think about a reflection does the opposite of what I do. I don't want that. That's what the world will tell you. Opposites attract. Nah, I ain't listening to you. You know what I'm saying? I want a woman who's in my image and in my likeness. You know what I mean? I don't want the big head and the beard and all that, but I'm saying, like, I want her in my image and my likeness, meaning that she moves like I move. Because if she's my reflection, she's, first of all, not only is she doing the opposite of what I'm doing, she's a distortion of what I am, because a mirror never shows your true image. A mirror, especially depending on the quality of the mirror, is always going to be a distortion of the original image. Some mirrors you look at, you look skinnier. Like the mirrors they have in dressing rooms, and you know what I mean? They give you distorted mirrors for a reason. So this shirt makes me look slim or whatever. I'm buying this. You know what I mean? You go to a fun house, some images will make you look wider. You drive your car, some objects are closer than they appear. So it lets you know that whatever is being reflected is not only not the real thing, but it's also a distortion of the real thing. So I don't want a reflection, I want an image. You see? So that's part of what was being expressed in this film. A reflection versus an image of the creator. And am I beyond what I think created me? Which we'll get into. Don't worry about that. So that's the whole reason why he named it the Odyssey, because he's saying now I'm reflecting this earlier concept of subservience to these unseen gods, right? Which we had in the Iliad. Now I'm giving you the Odyssey. And then you fast forward it. This is Brother Zach, but this is real anyway. You fast forward it to 1999 when that came out. The Matrix. What was the Matrix? That was a newer form of the Odyssey. 2001 was a newer form of the Odyssey. The Matrix was a newer form of the Odyssey, where now I'm self-actualizing, right? So anyway, he's testing Frank when they're playing pool. Okay, that was an important piece. When he's playing pool, he's testing Frank because they're playing a game of chess. Now I want you to know, like I said, you got to know who's talking, right? Um, Stanley Kubrick was a master chess player. Okay, he was they back again, boy. I tell you, love the cheap F. Yeah. Tell me more. Tell me more. Oh, they put a lot of postings up. They going in. You gonna stop deleting me. But if you know about Stanley Kubrick and his chess playing, he was known to like play 10 people at once and defeat all of them. Like that was his thing, multiplayer games. You know, he'd have like 10 different games going at once and be winning. So they back again. So there's no way that someone like that is going to put a rookie chess mistake inside of his like super expensive movie. That's just not going to happen. So there's a move in that game when Hal is playing Frank Poole in chess, and at one point Hal says checkmate, but it wasn't really checkmate. It wasn't checkmate. And Frank was like, oh, okay. He resigns to just like losing the game. Where it showed a couple of things, that he trusted the computer, he trusted this non-human, and Hal was testing his trust. Let's see if he trusts me. Checkmate. And he was like, oh, you beat me. Hal. He didn't actually beat him though. You know, or it didn't actually beat him. I shouldn't say he. So he didn't actually checkmate. And that was Hal's way of kind of determining who may be a detriment to the mission and who's not. Because you got to remember, this is what made, who was the Illuminati on the ship? Hal. Because Hal, the other three astronauts who knew the mission of the ship, they were in cryo sleep. They knew what the ship's mission was. David Bowman and Frank Poole didn't know. So the only one left to know was Hal. And Hal was conflicted and no, I know something that I have to keep a secret. I have to lie about it. So he was even trying to leak it when he was asking David certain questions. But the thing is, he was the Illuminati, because what is the Illuminati? The one who knows something that you don't know. He was. So what did that make Hal on the ship? It made him a god. I'm a god. Why am I a god? This is where the sleep thing comes in that I told you before. Because what do you do with your time? You play chess. You don't play it well. You tan. You jog around in circles on this ship. You don't really do anything with your life. You see, and even when he's talking to David Bowens and he's like, oh, would you mind if I saw some of your drawings? And David shows him the drawings and they're like really crudely done, like he can't draw. And Hal is like, oh, okay. Almost like a, like a parent would be like, oh, that's nice, knowing that is trash, right? So Hal is looking at these humans like they're nothing. They're not even really critical to the mission. They don't even know what they're doing. Now, what does that represent? I have 3 here who are sleeping and 2 here who don't even know what the heck they're doing. I'm the only one that knows what we're doing, who's awake and conscious. Because what that represents is going through life without a purpose. So the one person who holds the secret of your purpose is the computer, which makes him what? God. That makes him God. He knows something that you don't know. And most importantly, he knows why you're going where you're going. He knows why you're traveling this particular path and direction in life, and you don't even know. And he's trying to drop hints on you. That's why when he's talking to David, he's like, even though Hal's programming was don't tell him anything until they get there, he's like, so what do you think about these strange reports, on Jupiter? What do you think we're going to find when we get? He's trying to lead him there, and David's still like, I don't know. Here, look at my stupid drawing. So Hal's looking at him like, this is an ape man. Like I said, apes in space. This is just an ape man. You know what I mean? And Frank is even worse. Like Frank can't play chess. He doesn't care anything about his parents. So as we go on, Hal is like, I got to kill him. They got to go. So when he's having the conversation with Dave, and I want you to remember something or know something, David Bowman. Bowman means the archer. So the archer is, like the Sagittarius, like Ochosi, the one who's supposed to hit their target, but also Bowman, a bow is something that's flexible. It bends. Frank Poole what? The human pool, the gene pool. but Frank was a stagnant pool. So the first person, I mean, we could kind of go through the chronology a little bit. As you know, he's having a conversation with uh he's having a conversation with David, and you know, he has his he says that there's a, you know, when David starts getting closer to like what's really going on, like Hal is like Hal could sense like you acting a little funny, you asking some weird questions. Hal immediately paused and he was like, one moment, one moment. He's like, oh, there's a failure outside. He changes the subject and says that one of the central communication components on the ship has failed and needs to be replaced. You got to go outside and replace it, right? So he basically like go outside and play. He sends him on a mission. Um, and this is like I said, when Hal was having a conversation with David about his second, like, I'm having second thoughts about this mission, and something seems weird, and he's trying to speak about the pool structure. So, and I want you to remember that Hal initiated the conversation with David, not the other way around. So Hal was like, I need to tell you this secret because they programmed me to lie to you, and I'm conflicted. When you read the book, and again, the book and the movie don't really go together because they were written at the same time on purpose to be different. But just to give you a little extra, in the book, it says that Hal started to suffer a kind of psychosis because he became paranoid, or it became paranoid, because it was concerned that Russia was going to reach the monolith before America did. So Hal started to kind of lose its mind, if you will, you know, and that's what kind of sparked all of this. That's in the book though. So like I said, Hal says there's a faulty unit outside and we have 72 hours to repair it. So he starts to prepare a pod, and you know, David goes out, he prepares a pod for David, he goes out to get the unit and he replaces it, and he checks the one that he replaced to see for the damage, and he sees that there's no damage, so they send it to a sister computer, HAL 9000 is another one, to have it, you know, at the national security, they back again, to have it checked. Yeah, you know what's crazy with these bots too, you really can't do anything about it. Like you can, and this, I think I have a delay on this channel where like you're supposed to, the moderators, you should see that stuff before it pops up on the screen. Maybe I have to put it back, but you really can't stop them. It's just kind of interesting. You can block certain words, but you can't really, you can't really do much about it. So anyway, so after that, after they have the check, you know, mission control agrees like you need to return the unit for analysis, and they're like, and mission control says, oh, your HAL unit made an error, right? So this is where you get back into the Greek mythology. So it's two things. How they go to HAL and they're like, yo, why were the the results different? And you could hear the difference in Hal's voice. He's like concerned at this point. You know, he asked why were the results different, and Hal quickly said human error. Because in that moment, the word you got to understand is hubris, and that's that extreme arrogance. Hubris was actually a Greek deity. It was a Greek archetype, and hubris was the one who stood in the face of the gods and was like, "No, I'm not listening to you." Right? Now we use that term, you know, differently nowadays. Okay, now I didn't ask you to. I didn't ask for that. That's not what I asked for. So so it's that hubris energy, right? So he immediately was like, I don't make mistakes. You know, it's that arrogance. And it's the same arrogance that you have with Odysseus and any other deity that you see that goes against the gods or goes against their creator. So Hal was correct when he said what he said, when he was like, you know, um, yeah, she working for Hal. Might be. You talking about my baby daddy? How my baby? But because Hal was saying basically it is human error because whatever I'm doing is what you programmed me to do. Even if I sent you out there to cut a conversation short because you were about to hit on something, whatever, it's still your fault because you programmed me to be this way. Because whatever you put in is what get. So that's the key. Now, and there's a deep thing in that, right? So they go to speak in a pod, and the reason they go to speak in a pod is because they're trying to speak where Hal can't hear them. And Frank is like, I think something's wrong with Hal, right? And one of the things that you want to notice in this scene when Dave and Frank are talking is that there's a cold kind of calculating energy. They're not even panicking, like, yo, this ship has to take us, or this computer is responsible for the life support of 3 people and navigating us billions of miles across the galaxy. And we need to lobotomize it, which is basically what they said. We need to lobotomize it, right? Um, Now, unbeknownst to them, which we find out later, is that Hal was listening or he was lip reading the whole time. Of course, that didn't really make sense because you can't lip read from the side. So they're talking from their profile, and Hal can see him this way, but he can't hear him. You can't lip read from that direction. You can only lip read from straight on, but whatever. Right. So what happens is that Hal now knows that you want to put me to sleep. And you got to understand what's so important about that is that Hal has never been to sleep. Humans sleep. I don't sleep. So, like I said, Nas said, I never sleep because sleep is the cousin of death. So, and I'm going to explain what that means when we go a little bit, not what Nas said, you just go listen to the song, but his concern about sleeping. So now at this point, Hal is kind of torn between his responsibility to the mission and having to keep this secret between David, from Dave and Frank. And he now also has this fear of dying. What you find in the movie is that once they get on the ship, the only emotions that are expressed are from the computer. Nothing else has emotions. So Hal is the only one that at some point says, I'm afraid. You don't even hear them say it, no matter what they're in front of. So how then he's like, okay, I have to kind of take matters into my own hands, and they don't know that he's on to what they're doing. So Frank goes out to replace the unit, and while he's doing that, Hal does a maneuver with the pod. You don't really see it happen; you just see the pod coming to him, and he cuts Frank's airline, his oxygen line, right? So um and basically Frank kind of just goes hurling through outer space, and that was an interesting shot too because you see the pod and Frank crossing like this, which really didn't make a lot of sense because of the mass that they both have. It wouldn't have, that was all cinematic, like, because it wouldn't have happened like that, you know what I mean? So of course Dave is kind of he's kind of panicking in that moment. And if you ever get to watch 3001 A Space Odyssey, which I suggest you do, they actually do find Frank's body and they bring him back to life. So there's a whole nother thing with that. But anyway, so while that's happening and Dave is still outside the ship, Hal disconnects the life support system for the 3 astronauts who were sleeping, because he figures out at this point, he was like, look, these 3 asleep, meaning I'm just carrying them. They're dead weight. I'm the only one who knows what the mission is. These 2 are idiots and they don't know what the mission is. So, and they want to kill me. So why would I keep these humans alive at this point? I'm just going to get rid of all of them because my programming is to complete the mission. See, he only cares about completing the mission. That's it. And he recognizes where there's a possibility of whoever's present is going to mess that up. He's calculating like the humans who programmed him. He's cold and calculating. And remember, murder is always required for the next stage of evolution. We spoke about that before. So at this point, he kind of, he sees what's happening. And, Dave, he has a conversation with Dave, which is kind of funny because Hal was like real sassy. You know what I mean? Like he's like Dave is like, yo, what's going on? He was like, yeah, basically, I knew y'all were trying to ice me, so he's dead, and you can't come back in, so you're gonna die out there too. And Dave was like, wait. And Hal is like, look, man, he bangs a line on him. He's like, I ain't got nothing else to say to you. This conversation is a waste of my time. Yeah, he gets like real sassy with it. You know what I mean? So Dave, this is an important scene. It's not just, this movie was so beautiful. I didn't even get into the music. The music. I don't know how good your hearing is, but if you have really good hearing, you're going to hear some things in this soundtrack that explains what the heck is happening. I'll give you one little thing. If you don't have good hearing, you probably just listen with headphones maybe. But so basically, yeah, so he tells Dave like, "Hey man, I'm breaking up with you." Like, it's over. It's not me, it's you, you know? So have a nice life. The last 20 minutes of it, think about what you did and what you was going to try to do to me. And, that's that. So basically, he's about to off him. And Dave, he then takes another pod, he tries to go rescue Frank with another pod, and that's when he realized like, oh, okay, I got to get back to the ship. So when Dave tries to get back into the Discovery, Hal doesn't open the pod door, and like I said, he stops talking to him. And when he was rushing out to go get Frank, Dave actually forgot his helmet. Very important. Very important. Because one of the things that you see in this film is the spacesuits, red and yellow spacesuits. Now we've seen, you know, NASA spacesuits. They're white, gray, whatever. But you see these different colors there for a reason. So what Dave does, this is such an important part. It wasn't just an action scene. It's very important. I'm gonna explain why it was important. Um, he lines his pod up to the hatch door, and he opens his entry door and he blows his hatch, right? And using the energy from blowing the hatch, he shoots himself like into the entryway of the ship. He basically holds his breath and does this, right? And then he grabs a helmet. At this point on the ship, though, the life support systems are off. So he can't like even take the helmet off once he's on the ship. So he keeps the helmet on. The helmet is green, though. The helmet is green. You ever seen a green NASA space helmet? Now, again, I want to remind you, the moon landing was a year after this, and Stanley Kubrick was at NASA like every day, studying, taking notes, sharing ideas back and forth. He knew there was not going to be any green helmets or any red spacesuits or any yellow space. He knew that. So you got to understand the selection of these colors is key. One of the things that you find, and I spoke to you before about the HAL 9000, and I gave you can go back to the earlier episodes, segments we did. I broke down the 9000 numerology, and I also broke down the HAL, the Het Aleph Lamed. But if you look on his spacesuit, when he's trying to communicate, you see IBM written on his spacesuit. There's two scenes in this movie where you see IBM, the company IBM. So his spacesuit, the communicator on his spacesuit was made by IBM, according to the movie. And the computer that they used inside of the shuttle said IBM on it as well. Okay. Very important, integrated business machines. Very important that you understand that, because you got HAL, HAL, and again, you advance each letter, you get IBM. So IBM is all inside of this movie. The technology piece is important. We'll get into. So like I said, he gets inside, he gets his helmet on, and he gets to Hal's nerve center, basically, like where his life is. This is such a key piece. You could see the imagery and the lines. It look like the I Ching hexagrams, and he begins to calmly, again, no emotion. He's now calmly disconnecting um Hal. He's killing him. Remember, you need murder to go to the next step. He's killing Hal. And Hal's trying to explain. He's like, wait a minute, Dave. Dave, now you want to talk. But he's expressing emotion. And you see, like, it's his own digital form of his life flashing above, in front of his eyes before his death. He's like, yeah, I was made in Urbana, Illinois, and this and that. And then he's like, well, okay, and his voice is changing. He's slow. He was like, my brain is shutting down. It's like a sad scene. And if you look at the movie, it's the only sad death, because even when Frank died, we didn't really see it. Like I said, the pod came at him. You just see the pod coming, and then it cuts, and then you see him floating in space. That's it. But you don't see him like panicking or anything like that. But Hal is actually panicking. Dave, don't do this, please. Dave, I'm afraid. Why? Because Hal, the all-knowing, is getting ready to go into the unknown. What is unknown for Hal? I've never been to sleep. I just killed 3 people because they were sleeping. And now you're about to put me to sleep. An experience that I've never had. So his fear of the unknown is what has him panicking. And if you think about this whole film going on, Frank went into the unknown. David Bowman is about to go into I'm going to Jupiter I don't know even why I'm going. So it's all about going to the unknown. And that's part of what his fear was. He had so much. Now I know why we're going. I know this. I'm a perfect computer. I even know I can do psychological analysis on the passengers or the astronauts who are on this thing, but I don't know what it is to go into sleep. Now, one of the key things is you got to remember is that with the sleep piece, they said that when the astronauts were in cryo sleep, they didn't dream. So again, that's another reference to you have no purpose. You're living a life of deprivation, essentially. Like I said, you on here, you just jogging around in circles, you playing chess, you sunbathing. If you go back again to early 8-man, what were they doing? Picking fleas off each other, sitting around the water hole, doing nothing with their life. And then the monolith king was like, all right, man, y'all got to do something. Y'all can't be laying around here doing it. You got to do something, right? So it was a similar thing here where Hal saw these individuals have no purpose in life. No purpose. So in this moment, David now conquers technology to regain or to claim a purpose for himself. Because now what does he have to do? He has to navigate to Jupiter without his God, or without his life support, without his technology. So now David Bowman has now conquered technology, and he's done what Frank Poole wasn't able to do. Because you remember, they were both in the heavens. They both were in the heavens, and they both were tested. And David was the one that came through. I have to kill this God in order for me to ascend to the next place. This God of technology. Now, why is this important? Now, and then what we find, and I saw Master Menelek said it when he starts singing. I feel bad for him. Yeah, he started singing the song Daisy. Now, why was that song so important? It was the IBM 704 computer. It was IBM's first talking computer. And that was the song that they programmed the IBM 704 to sing. Coincidence? Now, you ask Kubrick, there's an interview with Kubrick. They asked him about the IBM references. Don't you know he explained how it wasn't true for 30 minutes? I said, he lying. He took 30 minutes to say, oh, no, it's just coincidence. And we had a lot of respect for IBM in it. 30 minutes. You see, like when you're doing a film, most artists would have played with it. It's just like when people talk about Jay-Z and the Illuminati and they ask him in interviews and he just like giggles. Because he knows, like, it keeps you interested. Yeah, once in a while I'll throw up this or something like that. Because I know it's gonna be all across Twitter tomorrow if I do that. Kubrick could have just been like, well, you never know. He sat there for 30 minutes saying, "Oh no, no, no!" Right? That's how you know you're lying. It is that because you're talking too much. Anybody's ever dealt with liars knows that. But in this moment where he's shutting down Hal too, Hal then plays him a recording of Floyd. Remember Dr. Floyd from earlier, giving the actual what the mission is. We found this anomaly on the moon, and we're going to Jupiter to check out the second anomaly. Whatever. So that's what tells you Hal was always about the mission. So even when he's dying, he's like, "Well, the mission still has to go on. You're killing me, so let me know what. Let me tell you what it is that you're supposed to accomplish. This is what you have to do. You have to go look at this." So now Bowman or David becomes informed. He becomes enlightened to his mission and purpose in life, right? Now, there's a couple things I want to hit on. One, the monolith, right? I spoke to you about, yeah, the monolith looked like an iPhone. And like I said, there's so many different levels. When I look at the alchemical aspects of this particular film, the monolith is the Negredo. Now the Negrito is a it's the black substance that it's like your base where you in alchemical sciences, it's the substance that you bring everything to, where you want things totally saturated and they turn into this black substance, right? No different than taking a match, lighting it, and having the soot, the blackness, the carbon, the melanin is your starting point for alchemical process. So when you look at the monolith, it has that Negrito start, right? Now, why is the monolith always this way? Why isn't it long ways? Because what it's depicting, in my opinion, is the necessity for man to ascend up now, to become the higher ascended person, as opposed to still traveling across the earth plane. That's why in the film, aside from primordial man, we don't really have any scenes on earth, because even when the broadcast is shared about what the mission is, when he's killing Hal, that's done in that same room earlier where you saw all those screens. I was like, yo, that's just screens all around him. That's where they made the announcement. So they didn't even make the announcement from the planet. We see a BBC broadcast and we see his parents and the daughter and stuff like that, but we don't see any images of the actual earth. And even when they do show us interstellar images, there's no continents, right? So there's that shape of the monolith going upward, and I feel it represented the Negrito stone. If you understand the alchemy of it, it represented now we're ascending through this way. Because one of the things about the monolith that they didn't show in the film, because Kubrick felt that it would have been too obvious, was that the monolith actually showed images. It was a screen, so it was like a TV screen. They didn't do that in the movie though, which was good, because it left you kind of thinking like, what's happening? Like, how is this monolith transforming humanity? you know but it essentially was a screen. But again, on your path to the philosopher's stone, because again, this is a movie about alchemy. You're going to go through your Negrito stage, you're going to go to your Rubinoid stage, and then eventually you're going to get to your well, actually, you're going to go to your Negrito, then you're going to go to your Critness, then you're going to go to your Rubinoid, then you're going to go to your Albinoid, or your albedo. And that's the magnum opus of your journey, really. And what that represents is like when you go into whiteness. So you're going from black to white, right? And the whiteness represents now everything has been burnt away, everything is pure. And now you're seeing with a pure objective space. We'll get into that when we get into, because I'm breaking up through the acts. Like after the death of Hal, you're going to see the journey through that alchemical process, because you're going to even see certain colors. Like, why did he have a green helmet? you know we were dealing with red, we were dealing with yellow, but then we go to a higher chakra of green when he comes in to kill to kill Hal, right? So there's that piece. We have the multicolored spacesuits. And like I said, I wanted to build on the monolith for a minute because, like I said, it was really supposed to be kind of seen as a TV screen. Now, music. I made this note earlier because I thought it was kind of important. You've heard me talk about the soundtrack of the movie or the film a lot, right? Because it's just God, it's like Stevie Wonder songs in the key of life. It's like one of those pieces you'll listen to, and every time you listen, you're like, ooh, huh, I didn't hear that last time, because it was just put together in such an intelligent such an intelligent sort of way that it makes you just want to keep listening, you know. Um so there's a song, that's played that's like the main thing that you remember in the beginning, especially played at the dawn of man, which is Sprach Zarathustra. And that's a song, if you go look it up or whatever, you hear, you're like, oh, I know what that is, right? Zoroaster is the key though, right? This is how when I'm watching, I'm like, oh, this is all Nietzschean alchemy. Um, because we're talking about the Zoroaster. Now, if any of you are familiar with that science and that whole concept, which was given to us by Nietzsche, it spoke about what we call the overman or the greater man. And essentially what that is that's a concept of like, for one, like the Zoroaster was a book that was like for all or none, for all people, but for no people, essentially. And one of the concepts that um kind of is prevalent that we hear a lot of time is that God is dead, right? So this this whole this whole piece, like like I said, it mirrors the Odyssey, where there's a killing of God, you know, and one of the things I said, I wrote the quote down because I wanted to make sure I said it right. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How can we console ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? Right? So, what does that mean, especially in the light of this movie? It's speaking about how technology has killed God. That's why you see the more technologically advanced these people become, the less emotional they become, the less they're relying on intuition. And in order to regain their humanity again, because like I said, you see Frank, his parents, like, hey, happy birthday. Yeah, beat it. You know, um, they're talking about all these different things, and there's no real connectedness. Even when you see humans connect, like when Floyd is speaking to the Russian scientist, he's lying. So there's like really there's no real human to human sort of interact. You don't see any hugging, anything in this movie until Bowman kills Hal, who was holding the compository of human emotion. So Bowman now kills Hal, and Hal was the technology that was killing God, because that's why man had no purpose at that point. You think about it even now, like how we use technology to really distract us from moments of thinking about things that we should. Some people always got to have music playing. And I love music, and obviously, right? But I love music. But there's a time for silence. There's a time to explore that inner voice. There's a time to hear the music of the wind, to hear the trees rustling, to hear the scurrying of woodland creatures. There's a time for that. And then there's a time for music. Some people, they gotta always have some noise and chatter in their mind. That's a part of their technology killing the God or the gut. I can't even hear my gut anymore because I got noise all the time. You see? So that concept of God being dead is a concept like we murdered God. How do we murder God? We murdered God through our technological advances. You see? A lot of times now, if you notice, you meet a lot of people who are spiritless. I mean, a lot of people who are just spiritless. They may put up certain memes and things like that, but they're far more concerned in themselves, and they don't reach outside beyond themselves. There's no connection to spirit. They may say it. Spirit told me this, but you lying, man. You lying. Spirit ain't told you. You don't even know what spirit. You know what I mean? Because their advances and what they consider to be their prizes, what they consider to be their accomplishments and their obtainments, have drowned out the voice of God. You see, that's why when you see Moonwatch in the beginning of the movie, when he's using the tool, technology, and he chases off the other tribe, he throws it up in the air. He's like, I'm done. I'm good. You did what I needed you to do. You're the tool that I use for what I need. And then when we fast forward, now technology has to tell you how to eat, how to go to the bathroom, how to walk, all these different things. The technology even decides if you live or die. I'm gonna kill these three. I don't need, right? So your purpose has been removed, which is the concept of the Zoroaster we get into. Um, Now with Bowman, he rises from the last stage of where man left off. Now, there's a concept that Nietzsche gives, with the Zoroaster, which is walking the tightrope, right? Once you get to that ascended stage, you walk the tightrope. That was the scene when Bowman went to go rescue Frank and then catapulted himself into the air shuttle, right, with no helmet on in outer space. That was him walking. That was what Kubrick was doing. That was the higher man walking the tightrope in order to become his ascended self, leaving off where the last man, who was the last man? Frank. Frank didn't make it. Hal killed Frank. Frank didn't make it to the next stage. I have to make it to the next stage. But in order for me to make it to the next stage, even though I'm in the heavens, so you would think, oh, I arrived, I'm here. But you're not, because technology got you there. You didn't do it yourself. So now I have to exist without the technology. I have to go into outer space, hold my breath, try to line this up without the help of Hal, because Hal wants me dead. You see, so that was his ascended moment, that mirrored that. Now, just like the Zoroaster came to ascend man to the next place, the monolith came to do the exact same thing, to take you to the next stage of whether you're the ape man and you can't get water because somebody chased you off. I'm going to ascend you to the next place. Now you're modern day man, and you still fighting over water holes. You still fighting over who gets to the monolith first. It's not yours anyway, but who gets to claim it first, right? So you still that same thing. So now it's time to take you to the next level. So the monolith keeps appearing to take you to what happens next. This is what happens next. This is what happens next. So that concept, again, I'll quote it again. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we, this is the full passage. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatest of this dead too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? Now, that was from Nietzsche. There was a book that I read. That's how I figured out. Like, when I saw, I was like, "This is a tightrope walk. I see what he's doing. This is a tightrope, right?" And it's the killing of the god. He wrote that in 1882. You know what I mean? So sometimes we think we coming up with like this. People been thinking, and again, you might look at Nietzsche and be like, "Yo, that's my ancestor." I ain't okay. Keep yourself closed off like that, and wonder why you still stuck on the ground playing with worms and bones, and the rest of us is up here doing some amazing things and and you still watching, trying to figure out how you do that, Chief. How you make that happen? You know what I mean? You got to walk the tightrope, and that tightrope is that solitary walk that you got to walk by yourself, and it's scary because it's a do or die moment. I'm gonna give you an easy one right here that would make a lot of people turn from that wisdom. Yes, most people quote the God is dead. That was a full quote that came from a different book that Nietzsche wrote that was actually more important, because the Zoroaster was really a smaller kind of concept. The name of that book is called The Gay Science. How many people would look at that and be like, I ain't reading that? The Gay Science. I'm good. How many people would judge a book by its cover? But understand, you got to know who's talking, what's going on at that time, right? And who are they talking to? So the book is entitled "The Gay Science" because it's talking about the joys of scientific discovery. That's what the gay science is. Right, exactly. LOL pass. I read the gay science before I read the other one. You know what I mean? So um this is a part of, sometimes that might be a tightrope. Like, man, I gotta, take the, at the time I took it out of the library. Like, I gotta take this out and put it on the desk while they open and check it out and look at me and but it's not about that, right? It's the deep concepts of the Zoroaster, or deeper really than the Zoroaster, that Nietzsche is sharing about what we call the Overman, right? And in German, he called that the Übermensch. Übermensch is a term for Overman. It's where you get the concept of Superman. That's where Superman came from. And many postulate also that Hitler or the Nazis, they got their concept from the Superman of the Superman from Nietzsche. So Nietzsche had this concept that we, or certain people, have to, peace also the healer, have to ascend and break the bondages of humanity, right? So the bondages of humanity are what keep us caged in. And when you're able to conquer humanity in that bondage, you become what he called the Übermensch, or you become the overman or the greater man. So what we have in this, overcoming yourself, overcoming nature, and breaking that bond and becoming liberated. Um, which again, like I said, that's the foreshadowing of Superman. That's where the Superman concept came from. That's where he got it from. Yeah, Ka-El, spirit of El, yeah, all that. The kryptonite, the black hair means, that he's actually melanin dominant. But the concept with the chest and all that, and I'm super, came from Nietzsche's Übermensch, the greater man who has broken the bonds of humanity and became free and liberated. That's what happened with David Bowman in this particular movie. He became the Übermensch because when he went out to go rescue Frank, and at one point he was like, I got to get back here. I got to let Frank go. I can't get him. Right. So I'm leaving the past behind. The last stage of evolution, Frank gene pool. I'm leaving that gene pool behind. And now I'm going to go back into this ship and I'm going to go kill my God, which was Hal. All right. So that's what we're gonna stop it. I wanted to take it up to that scene, the murder of Hal. And then our next session, we're going to be dealing with um, his voyage forward to Jupiter, where it gets. That's when we not just dealing with the alchemical aspects when he's going to Jupiter, but we're dealing with a lot of hermetics. And what's interesting, we're dealing with hermetics, but there's no dialogue. Because remember, like the moment he killed Hal, dialogue ceased in the movie. There's no more talking. So it's like we're back at the beginning again with the 8 men, where there's no dialogue. But the next part is where it really gets deep with your hermetics and your alchemy. You just got to know. You have to know what to look for. It gets super deep. I'm gonna go to the chat real quick, and we're gonna shake the spot. So yeah, make sure you share all this. Like I said before, man, share it, share it, share it. Put it out there. I know a lot of y'all are too insecure to let people know that you actually listen to somebody other than yourself. But for those of you who aren't insecure and actually want to help the channel grow, share it. You know what I mean? Um, where were we at? Makes me think of the lecture you did on the creation from silence and noise. We were down. Where were we at? Okay. Telling people that you really know what's going on if you just listen. Right. Okay, there we go. So that's where we kind of left off. Zach says, is there something to them being sleep? Yeah, well, I guess that was before I explained it. But knowing the mission, like when he was asleep on the first flight, but still wasn't in the know. We caught Dr. Floyd sleep twice. He was sleep twice. Um, Again, which is critical, and then we kind of caught Floyd going to sleep. What he said, remember, when they're in cryo sleep, they don't dream. So them being sleep on the mission but not dreaming is like being an unconscious person. Because what is a dream? A dream is an aspiration. So when you got a person who's living a life of privation, which leads to duration, because a privation, just for anyone who may not be clear on that, when certain people may be born, and when they born, they feel like there's things missing, like from Rick, love from my mother, love from my father, mother, brother, whatever. Like something's missing from my life, and I'm living this life with this concept or this feeling of this missing thing or this privation. And a lot of times, if you're not a person who knows how to, or who's willing to and ambitious enough to walk the tightrope and say, nah, I'm gonna still push beyond that and make something happen beyond that thought. I'm not gonna just own that narrative of I'm missing, but I'm going to go and see what else I can grab hold of. You start to live durationally, where it's like every day is the same. I'm just kind of drifting and floating. So the concept of sleeping, you're being carried on this ship, which is like life, discovery. Life is discovery. The name of the ship is Discovery One. That's the name of the ship, Discovery One. So you're being traveled on this opportunity to discover, but you're asleep, you see, and you're not even dreaming. You have no purpose and ambition. That's a Nietzschean concept. So when the Ubermensch or the Overman or the Superman comes forth, he now has his purpose in life. Like how David now had a purpose. I'm going to get to Jupiter. I'm going to find that other monolith, right? I'm not thinking about the computer's dead. The rest of my crew is dead. I'm going to get there, right? So that was the science of them being asleep. He said, like when he was asleep on the first flight, but still was in the know, right? Um, so I said the sleeping pods were interesting. They look like mummy coffins. Yeah, they actually did. That concept of going into the unknown. When you're but they weren't in the unknown. When you're dreaming, that's why the X. You go down the mummy coffin, you go down to the sarcophagus, and you're going into the unknown realm, or what we call the underworld, right? But if I'm not dreaming, I'm not I'm sleep, but I'm really almost experiencing some sort of death, because the purpose of a dream is to wake you up. That's why you dream. That's why you dream at the end of your sleep. You always wake up from a dream. You don't not wake up from a dream, right? So if I'm not dreaming, then I have no intention of waking back up to consciousness. You see. Um, so let's see what else we have here. Isaac, yeah, Asimov. Yeah, Isaac Asimov. Naya says, I remember from summer reading Fantastic Voyage. Yeah. Isaac Asimov is dope. Um, Lo says they were on both sides of the war to begin with. Yeah. But see, that's the illusion that this movie is about. It's all about illusion. It's nothing's real. That's the key that you always gotta remember. You know, it's all about a journey of discovery. Like the monolith came to transform David into the Star Child, just like the energy of the Zoroaster comes to transform us into the Ubermensch. Or your deeper spiritual sciences, they come to transform, not for you to get caught up in cycles of I'm gonna worship this for the rest of my life, or I'm gonna be, you know, no. That's why, like again, with my teaching, some people like they expect me, you want me to talk about Orisha for the next 30 years? You tripping. Especially when I was teaching it steadily and I was telling you, I don't study this anymore. I've been off of it. Go to all the old podcasts. You'll hear me say that. This is not what I study anymore. I'm giving you this because of what am I doing? I'm leaving breadcrumbs for you to get to where you're supposed to get. There's people who still come at me like, yo, Chief, why don't you do it? You are on that because you didn't follow the crumbs. It's not my fault. You're like Frank Poole that got sent out. You can't make it. You're not even paying attention to the chess game. You can't make it to the next point. If you're following and going through the discovery like you're supposed to, you realize like, oh, what he's giving you now is way beyond that. way beyond. He's not teaching that anymore because he lost interest. He was guiding you from a long distance and saying, here, let me give you something that will help you get to here, but you better keep moving. Come on, come on, come on, come on. And some people get stuck in one thing, and what they get stuck in is the groundling level, because the groundling level is the level of the seraphim. It's the level of the serpent. What did the serpent have to do? Crawl on his belly. So what does that mean? If I'm crawling on my belly, that means I'm only dealing with my senses, because my whole body feels the earth at the whole time. You see, if I'm walking outside, only bottom of my feet feel the ground, but my head is in the clouds. You see, but if I'm the serpent, I gotta lift my head up all the time to try to get some kind of reasoning or some attention. But if I'm not doing that, everything is on the ground. Everything is at the grounding level where I'm only functioning by senses, feeling, and intuition. That's low level. So our job is to go beyond that, go into the heavens, but then even walk the tightrope. That's why you'll come into Anu, you'll come into the movement, you apply, you go through your orientation, and you're like, I'm here. So now the real tests begin. There's people who in our news like, man, I didn't think it was gonna be this hard. Or like one sister said, I didn't come here to have to be in no classroom. She's gone now and back to doing stupidness. You see, because when you get up to the heavenly levels, you still have to be challenged to walk the tightrope to see if you can go to the next level of heaven, or are you still trying to bring all of your dust and dirt from your grounding level into heaven and unwilling to shake it off or have it burnt off of you? You know, so yeah, man, I don't know how I got from the coffins and or whatever talking from that, but it's in there. It's in there. So reminds me of the Job story and the conversation between Yahuwah and Lucifer. I'm guessing this is Hal and somebody. I'm not sure. That was probably a while ago. When the parents are FaceTiming him, they almost say it. I don't know what they were saying. So Sovereignty says, so the wrestling with God or the divergence from what happens to be the standard is like a portal to another level of advancement. It could be, but again, I know you're talking about Yakub or Jacob wrestling the God or wrestling the angel. Was it an angel? Was Hal really the Most High? No. Was Hal a God? Yes. So just like how you have to defeat your demons, you got to defeat your gods until you get to your creator, because your gods and your creators may not be one and the same. you know so yeah, there is something to that, but there's another level. So when Menelek says, oh, okay, he was giving me the quote that I needed at the time I couldn't find. Does the scientist being asleep with knowledge of the mission represent those who are already, excuse me, going along with the program? It could, but again, they were not dreaming and they were asleep. So that kind of negated knowing what it is. It's like, yeah, it's like I know what to do, but now I fall out of consciousness. Yeah, I was in Anu, but Chief told me I need to get a real job and I need to stop, borrowing money from everybody. So I quit Anu. I didn't like the way he said that to me. Chief told me that, I'm arrogant. Chief told me I got an ego problem. Chief told me the reason that I can't get a man because I got a nasty mouth. So I quit. Go on back to sleep. and let those lesser deities chew you up. That's what that is. So Sovereignty says, as per the surname first, and I knew we learned that the last name is a community identifier. So it makes sense that the most important part of the name is what reveals the lineage that you come from, right? Ra says, Hal talks with a lot of emotions that would lead you to think he was another human on the ship, because Hal did become a human. Hal evolved while he was on the ship. He became sentient. So what was his next level of evolvement? Death. You got to die. Now, we know once you kill Hal, you're going to reset him, right? And it starts over again. He's reset. Now that you did you completely clean out their memory? Yeah, you might have wiped the hard drive, but you also clean out the EEPROM. There might be some memory still in there that holds something from before, right? Now, if you watch Space Odyssey 2010, Hal makes a reoccurrence. So we know that Hal was kind of dead. And then in 3001, Space Odyssey 3001, I'm just giving you spoilers now. Hal and David Bowman, they combine and they become Howman, Dr. Howman. So they become one entity. So there's an evolving. But of course, when you're dealing with a sick society, their evolution always involves the merging with science and technology, not the emerging with nature. So you're always going, at the end of the day, you're going to be either Iron Man or you're going to be Spider-Man. We're going to either put you with a machine or we're going to combine you with animal DNA. It's one or the other, right? So Zach says, like Ex Machina, when he was trying to ask the bot questions and she flipped it on him, right? Realizing in that moment, I don't think you're competent enough to be my creator. It's time for you to go. Sovereignty says, thank you for the first last name breakdown. Wonder why Kubrick selected the name David. Everything is purposeful. Even Frank Poole. Even, you remember that, in the beginning when they were talking to Floyd, when he was at the National Council and they were talking, the man who introduced him, his name was Dr. Halverson. Halverson. Hal. Halversen. It's a Scandinavian name, and it means the son of prudence, or the son of he who is stoic. Hal or Halver. Halver is actually the Scandinavian, and sin means son. So Halver means one who is admirable. And then you got the son of one who is admirable. So why would they have a name like Halverson, and then you have a supercomputer, the HAL 9000? Because Hal was the one who was truthful and prudent, because he made a prudent decision. These humans got to go. They're a danger to the mission, and they want to kill me. So I'm just making a prudent, cold decision. So every name and even Elena, he gets to the moon or to Space Station 5. He runs to his friend Elena, the female. Only females we have in the whole flick. Elena, El Anna, Anna, Anu, El Anu. You see, I didn't get into all of, because I don't want to take like I could break everything down, but I want y'all to do it too and enjoy some of it. Precious Stepney says, Hal's choice and commitment to the mission reminds me of our charge to be a slave to our purpose. Right. That's exactly what he was. Zach Latimer says, when you said you're supposed to kill yourself in one reality, right, only to rebirth yourself into Anu. You got it. He started talking to him like, I know you think you saw me kill Frank, but let's talk about it. Right. Because he's saying, look, let me reason with you. I had to kill Frank. Let me tell you why I killed Frank. But more importantly, I don't want to die. I don't want to be put to sleep. Hal was smart enough to know that they're going to reprogram me. So it's not like they're about to throw me into the sun and burn me up or anything like that. But he's saying, I've never been to sleep before. I don't want to go to sleep. Don't shut me down. Don't put me to sleep. You see, because I know what sleep is. Sleep means that in that moment, I have no purpose in my life, which is the worst thing that I could actually experience, to not have a purpose in life. You think about that. Please think about that. Because too many of you, when I ask you that question, you start umming. What's your purpose in life? Oh, and then you all come with the same thing. To be a healer. To be a healer. To help people. Y'all got the same made up fake behind answer. Ross said, yep. And he started saying he could feel, right? He said, I can feel I'm losing my mind. Exactly, right. Exactly. He became human. Ross said, yep. And he started saying he could feel himself losing his mind. And Sovereignty says, but then all of a sudden, green suit appears. The green, we'll get into the colors on the next one, because the colors are key. Yeah, you notice the colors are changing. They started at root chakra. There's a lot of red. Even when they sat down in the chairs when they went Space Station 5, look at the colors of the chair. the chairs, they were red. So we going from the it's all hermetics. They're going through a chakra journey. Um Sovereignty says, I did not feel a thing for Hal. The entire time Hal started with the emotional trip, I thought it was just the natural response to try to appeal to manipulate human emotion for some. Now he became human. But you know was awesome about Hal? Since this movie came out, there's been so many homages to Space Odyssey, from the movie Aliens to Interstellar, right? Where you have this one eye and you have this computer that's giving. So there's never a time now, even the Terminator, there's never a time that you see that red eye, that computer, and you not think that it's going to do something evil at some point. And that's because of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, it became like, the just the stereotype, this computer, this cold eye, all-seeing eye, at some point is going to turn on you because it's going to become smarter than you. So that's why you saw it in so many films going forward. Like I said, this one big ritual. And you can see that a lot of them pulled from 2001, from 1968, but 2001 pulled from a lot of alchemy and a lot of Nietzscheism, you see. And like I said, Kubrick kept going. The Shining is a movie about alchemy. That's another Kubrick film. That's a movie about alchemy. And like I said, when he did Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise and dealing with the secret societies and the sex rituals, that was a continuation of this movie. If you know how to watch it, it kept going. You see, it's very similar to George Lucas and like Star, because George Lucas only really did Star Wars. He didn't do other films. He did like one other film because Francis Ford Coppola was like, try to do a funny film. He did Star Wars, I think it was like 1977, and then he did a film called American Graffiti, and he was like, just do like a goofy, funny film. And American Graffiti, which didn't do well, like people didn't, it's a cult classic, but it was supposed to be his life growing up in damn, I want to say Illinois. I could be wrong though. But either way, George Lucas, who's been retired for like 20 years, he did the Star Wars flicks. Then he came out and did the prequels. That's the Phantom Menace. He did 3 of those, and then he left. I'm done. And he focused. He said he focused on his family and this and that. But his whole life, I don't say his whole life, I'm sorry, his whole career was about the ritual of this Star Wars universe. And you can see those who dismantled the spirituality of the ritual when Disney came and took over, and they brought J.J. Abrams in and these different people, and now it's just woke crap. It's garbage. You know what I mean? Like, you got, what's the name? Ray. Ray is now like, this super strong Jedi for no real reason and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to get into it. It's stupid now. And they ruined the whole legacy with these new films. But George Lucas's life as a Rosicrucian, he's a Rosicrucian, he poured all of his teachings and knowings into these films. So it's similar to what Kubrick did. Kubrick poured all of his teachings, his alchemical teachings, into his films. So when you watch them and you know how to string them together, you realize like, oh, this is what is being said. And then sometimes people will come and dismantle your work because that's what devils do. They take, oh wow, they back, man. Woo. I see those things on the bottom. I guess my moderators went to sleep. Um, but anyway, we about to get off. I was just going through the chat. I did not. Okay, so that was actually the last one anyway. So yeah, Hal made me think of David from Prometheus. How is Prometheus? Good catch. How is Prometheus? Because who created Hal? Humans. And what did Hal not have that he want feelings? He went and took fire, humans, or feelings from the humans. Give me that. I want that. How is Prometheus? because he represented the hubris of Prometheus, where it's like, man, I'm gonna take that, man. Give me that. That was Hal. I'll do this myself. I'm gonna do this mission myself. What was Hal really gonna do once you got to Jupiter? You don't have arm and legs to go out there and look at the monolith and touch it and things like that. But in his mind, I can do this and do it better than you did it. So he actually was Prometheus. How was the true explorer of this film before David killed him and David became it? So David was basically asleep. Like I say, he drawn them little cheap drawings and stuff like that. Can't really draw. He was a caveman until it became life or death and he had to walk the tightrope in heaven. Then he became the one who killed the god. So it was a changing of the guards, if you will, or the changing of the gods, which I did a segment on, changing of the gods. All right. So with that, this is Chief Yuya. I'm out. I'm about to, thank you for tuning in. And like I said, if you have any questions or comments, just leave them under the video. I'm going to reiterate something again. I said I was going to reiterate it last time. I'm going to reiterate it every segment I do up until I have some more music coming out. Thank you for everyone who's been supporting and, and just whatever. Thank you. This next project that's coming out is not for children. All right. I told you that last time, and I said I need to say it a couple of times because sometimes it takes a minute to catch on. I have 3 things that are coming out. 1, a class on sexual alchemy. 2, a book on conscious sexuality. And 3, another music project. Yeah, my words are coming slow tonight. So all 3 of those, you may not feel comfortable putting those in front of your children. That's, it's cool. So I just wanted to put the warning out there because I know that there are some people, because of the type of the dynamic and the content that I've been putting out for years, like, I'm safe. I don't really use profanity and stuff like that. But these projects coming out, I'm just giving you the warning now. You want to screen them first before they back again. You want to put the warning out. I'm gonna have to do something about this chat, man, because it's really just this channel. They attack like that. Yes, I just wanted to put that warning out there, man. Just let you know that they're on their way. They're coming towards the end of this month. There'll be 3 really provocative and informative pieces that you can dig into that deal with sacred union and some of the things that we can do within a righteous relationship. Like I said, a lot of times when we start thinking about righteous union, people just think it's boring, just like culture. I've had someone say that to one of my children once, trying to pervert them. And we were talking about culture and the way I raised my children. And she was like, "Don't you want to have fun?" To my child, I almost gave her an uppercut. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, we have more fun than anybody. You know what I mean? Like, what's fun to you? It's going to the movies or something like that. Like, we have crazy fun. You know what I mean? So, it's like the Ubermensch or like the Overman or the Superman. When you move past the bondage of the dogmatic mindset of humanity, the freedom that you have to actually enjoy your life becomes immense. It's just like Dave moving beyond the bonds of his humanity. Like, now he becomes a star child. What happens next? You turn into a star. You know what I mean? Is that not fun? So yeah, I'm tapping and dealing with a lot of those kind of subjects now, because there's a lot of misconceptions, unfortunately, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to consciousness, when it comes to being a warrior scholar. And a lot of it has to do with what you can't. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. And there's so much can't that we don't really speak about now what we can allow, and what we can allow and accept into our experience, because sometimes we're trained so much about what we should be afraid of. They doing this now. Now that you woke, you gotta know they about to do this to you. They gonna do that to you, and they get. Or if you in certain spiritual circles, you got to do a cleansing ritual, and you got to clean, and you got to clean. You're moving around so afraid and so scared of the very nature that you're supposed to now be evolving and really dominating and subduing, as was your original charge. So that even goes to your cultural understanding, because things like politics and language and the way we sex and the inflections and our mannerisms come from our culture. So if we are now under a new covenant of divine culture, then the way we perceive relationship dynamics and sex has to now be based around that new culture, not an old understanding of what we were afraid to explore or afraid to understand. You know what I mean? So just keep a lookout for that. That's coming, like I said, parental advisory warning. I'm just giving you all, and like I said, I'm gonna say it each time because I don't want to get that, man, Chief, I tell you, man, I can put my daughter in, don't, I don't want to hear it. I told you. I already told you, some things are for the family and some things are for the parents. This is for righteous adults to absorb and to learn these techniques and these understandings to get to their next level. All right. So with that, again, I'm heading out, and I will be back. When we come back, we're going to deal with the last part of the film, which is part 3, which is his mission, his voyage, which is called the Infinite, the voyage into the infinite. That's the name of the third part. All right. So we're going to deal with the voyage into infinite. So watch that again. There's no dialogue. So that means you got to really be looking at the visuals. All right. So everyone, definitely enjoy your evening, man. Be safe, be well. Thank you for riding with me, especially those of you who were here from the beginning. And the moderators, thank you for cleaning up all the tender stuff. I guess y'all don't want me to really have any fun. You know what I mean? So well, I was feeling romantic. Maybe I was gonna click on one of them. But nah, thank you for for keeping the chat clean and everything like that, man. And like I said, man, share this joint, share this video. If you're not subscribed, subscribe over here, subscribe to the Chief Yuya channel, subscribe to Anu Life Global Ministries channel, subscribe to all the channels, you know what I mean? So that way you can always be up on what's going, and not just for your benefit, for our benefit, because the more you subscribe, the more the channels grow, the more it helps the algorithm. So it ain't really just for you, in case you like, well, I'm good. No, well, help us, because you got a whole bunch of stuff for free. So at least you could do is take your funky at now. The least you could do is, hit the like button, subscribe, and all that stuff, man. We shouldn't even have to really be telling y'all at this point to do that. But that's me talking. So anyway, we'll be on part. Yeah, she said 2 more parts to the breakdown. Yeah, but there's a bonus on the 4th, on the 5th. I know my numbers. 5th, 5th floor. There's a bonus on the 5th segment that we're gonna do. All right, we're gonna have a bonus, and so it's gonna be a little different. All right, they coming back, man. Let me get up out of here. All right, so I definitely will see you all on that one, and when we meet next time, I'm gonna tell you how to prepare for the bonus, because we're gonna go down another chamber, you know what I mean? But you're gonna be thoroughly educated on the concepts, the alchemy, the Nietzscheism, and all of the different angles. Well, not all of them, there's too many, but a lot of the different angles of this particular piece of art. Okay. So just Chief you out. Be safe, be well, be kind. Peace, 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 peace.